Hi, it's Michael. Welcome to week 6. So, thank you for all your hard work on HTML coding. I really enjoyed that process with you, and I hope it reinforced part of what I really hope is something evident in the course, which is I don't expect everyone to get things right off the bat. And I think that as you submit something and then you get some feedback and then you can work on it again, not only are you making things better, you're also learning that the first approach is not always going to be the one that's going to get you somewhere, and that's going to keep holding up. In fact, this part of the course, we're actually going to be sharing a lot more visual things, and we're going to share them also in Mural. But we still have one bit left in terms of the journey so far. Let me just say, what did we do with nouns? And I think there's still some work to be done here. So don't forget that the taxonomies are there to take very, very large sets of data and break them into more manageable categories and subcategories. And those can also be one or many. You don't have to have just one subcategory, and you can make them up. So I think if you guys got to see the video from Diner, the point was you can arrange things for yourself however you want and however makes sense. As you're organizing it for others, you can be creative, like in this example, and say, hey, I'm going to classify wines by the tastes that they have. Or if you are categorizing beer, you can see here, this is a taxonomy, 1000%. Of words that everyone can understand in many respects so that they can find something again. And if you all are beer fans, you know that there's way too many beers. So there's a difference between making up categorization and there's a difference between finding them. And most likely as an IA, you want to find them that already exist because that means a lot of work has been done for you. That doesn't mean that it can't be creative. So I hope that all that made sense, and we're still thinking about hierarchy. So when it comes to your, let's say you have a title of a book, well, that title of the book is probably not very meaningful hierarchically, even though you might in your HTML give it an H1 or an H2. Like, it is important, but it isn't immediately understood, whereas something underneath it, or let's say published date, might be an H2. Let's say if we just go H1 is the title, H2 is the author, H3 is the date of publication, H4 is the genre. That's the hierarchical part that I really want you to make sure you feel strong about before we move into this next phase of organization, which is actually a little bit harder, but it's a little bit more to do. Like, this could happen for anything, anytime. If you work at a company, you will be working with information constantly, which is poorly organized and structured. Just the way it goes, you know? Maybe many try, by the way, but normally it's pretty poorly organized and structured. And that's why people are constantly asking and having meetings and asking questions. It's just the way it goes. But if you're trying to produce something, as many do, that service a lot of different people with a lot of different varieties of needs, you're going to need to have IA come up with these structures, test them, and understand them. And it's a great value to almost every business on earth. So this week, just to continue the thought, and last thing, Drew, whether you like it or not, those keywords and the words that you provided and the HTML that you provided actually has now turned what you started with data and you've turned it into information. And you might ask me, well, that didn't seem like information. That was just some records in HTML. The sidebar of this is that most of your work in the web, let's say, will be read by other computers first. And computers, as you've just seen, they're going to use these words and these tags and all these concepts to be able to understand what your content is about. And sidebar, I remember once putting in an address and calling it navigation and using the right tags. And all of a sudden, not only were we way up in our search results, we were number 1 or 2, it actually did go in and it provided the user with the navigation structure of my site because it knew it was a navigation structure. And so if you start to see these things in any of your experiences is because they are encoded properly to be understood by computers, and that gives you an enormous benefit. Pretty cool. So this week, that last week was nouns, and now we're going to talk about verbs. So now we're moving forward. We're still within the world of information, but now we need to provide some way for people to explore this information. So I'm calling it verbs, and these have to do with the ideas of navigation and navigation items. And navigation items are not taxonomies. So a taxonomy might have 100 items in it. You're not going to necessarily want to put that into a menu. That wouldn't work on the web or any place else, really. So how do you manage to get things, and words especially, to be able to help convey what your content is about and let people explore? So we've got a couple of things. One important thing here is to understand the topic here. What's navigation? Secondly, also, of course, don't forget the write-up that we have in our module to go give you even more information. We are going to look at places to put it. Now, these are where you put these words. So if you go into these particular patterns, you're going to see a lot of different patterns, all of which are navigation patterns. So all these have been invented to allow people to be able to find things. I want you to actually explore that. And one of the exercises here is to post a site where you have found one of these. So you found this style, let's say breadcrumbs. So go ahead and find a site that uses breadcrumbs and then post a link to it here and then explain a little bit, hey, this is a breadcrumb. Cool. So then we can all get examples of it. Just in case these are too brittle, an example should help. And also I want you to learn all the patterns because you're going to be using them shortly, or picking which ones. Secondly, I want you to think about what's called a sitemap, and that's a way of organizing at a very high level your information and your records. And that high level does not necessarily have to do, I would say one of them should do with your taxonomies. So for me, I came up with a taxonomy of the types of smells because those are actually how perfumes are organized. Just to let you know, they're called orientals, they're called chypre, florals, citrus, etc. So these are the things you should or could have found, but there are other ways to explore your content. So these words and these verbs can serve right now as an alternate way to understand and navigate your content. And they create, in some ways, this kind of map. And that's also explored in the module, and I hope you give it a shot. And as with anything, like we said, we're about iteration. Try it out, get some ideas out there, get some feedback from me and the rest of the class, and let's have a great week. Thanks.